If you could please look this way so that we can take a picture of you all.
The camera, it's here. They're going to take a picture of you all. Okay. Muy buenas tardes.
Good afternoon. I just wanted to share some information with you. Logistics channel 2 for English, channel 1 for Spanish.
Al revés.
Oh, the other way around. Sorry, says the speaker.
For one and for Spanish, channel 2, please. Perdón. Muy buenas tardes.
Good afternoon. I'm going to speak Spanish. It is a great honor for me to be here today with you. It is true that we're not German. We are beginning with a bit of a delay, 20 minutes late, so we are actually just proving that we are Latin, and we will have to be here until 6:20. My name is Tamara Adrián. I am an MP for the Venezuelan Assembly. I am the first trans woman who has been elected in Venezuela and the second in Latin America. And I wanted to quickly welcome you all. And we are going to quickly approve the agenda. I mean, I should be reading the agenda. The secretary should be reading it, but I think that we can just forget about that step because you all have the agenda. I am here today as chair for this session, and I have to my right Apsara Raide, who is a politician who comes from India, and I have Helga Stevens to my left, who is a member of the European Parliament. And I also have here Mr. Jose Santoro to my left, Ben Owen also to my farther left, and to my right, Luis Abolacia, a representative of the Victory Institute. I wanted to simply approve the agenda. If you all agree with it, you can simply use the sign we usually use for approvals. And we will now, we'll give the floor for 2.5 minutes in order to bid welcome to this house to Javier Maroto, the Partido Popular MP, the MP Ángeles Álvarez from PSOE, and the Senator Pilar Lima from Podemos, and the Senator Tomás Marcos from Ciudadanos, in the order I just mentioned. And each of them will have an allotted time of 2.5 minutes to say a few words to all of us in this occasion. I don't know if we will have time to use this speaker's corner or this platform if you wish to do so. And if not, you can obviously use your microphones in front of your seats. So I will first give the floor to Javier Maroto from Partido Popular, MP for the Spanish Congress. Good afternoon. Thank you so much, Miss Chair. And thank you all. Well, good afternoon to all the Spaniards. I would like to bid you a warm welcome, and all of you who are foreigners. I want you to know that you are very much welcome to Spain, to this country, which is a magnificent country, a great country, a country that has undergone a social transformation that is very important in a very short time, and we are now one of the most tolerant countries, lovers of freedom, one of the countries that is most passionate about freedom in Western democracies. You know that the 4 main political parties amongst the citizens, the 4 political parties with institutional representation are here. Partido Popular, the one holding government in Spain, as well as the other political parties, want to share with all of you, and with all of the LGBTQI world, that there are values that can only improve society, that respect to equality, respect to freedom, and respect to diversity are not an option. They never were. They are mandatory. It is mandatory for a society who wishes to call itself society of the future, because these are principles and values that improve us all. We have to work very hard for them, as we have done for many decades. Many activists have been fighting in order for the society to change, and some still do. But we MPs have the opportunity of generating this network, of knowing each other, of working together, of believing in each other and providing us all support and doing a great service for what we are, for what we believe in, which is freedom, respect for equality, respect for diversity. So welcome to Spain. Thank you very much. Now, MP Ángeles Álvarez, a representative of the Socialist Party, Spanish Socialist Party. Good afternoon. Welcome to Madrid. Welcome to Spain. I wanted to share a personal anecdote. The first time I wanted demonstration in Madrid to fight for LGBT rights, there were more people looking on the sidewalks than people demonstrating. But now, our streets are completely filled with people. They're full not just of activists, of LGBTQI rights activists, but also their family members, their friends, and the whole society who considers that our demands and our hopes are theirs as well. Today, what I would like mainly to do is to show my recognition to activists, because everything that we have in this country has not just fallen from the sky. It wasn't just a gift. It is the result of the fight of many people, and activists and all of those who had political responsibilities and who were the promoters of legal changes are the ones who have allowed us to have rights in this country, rights which are very often rights that have consequences that go beyond our borders, beyond our frontiers. I want, and it couldn't be any other way, to remind you all of Pedro Cerolo and his braveness, and José Luis Rodríguez Zapatero as well, who took the words and the needs that our collective had to the parliament, and he made for many of us possible to get married, to have a legal cohabitation with the people we love. And I want to share a wish with you all, a desire. What I would like is for us to be capable of understanding that what is happening here today, this afternoon, will have a transcendence, and it can have a transcendence if we can articulate an international movement of MP members, LGBTI MPs, who are capable of committing to the rights of our collective all over the world. This is something that those who can't, who don't have a voice, ask of us. Those of us who are in a privileged position, such as us, those of us who are here today, we have the responsibility of fighting for them in their countries so that the voice of LGBT rights are heard in their countries, because we can engage ourselves to do so. So I encourage you not just to have fun during the party, to enjoy Madrid, to enjoy everything that we have that is good, including the heat. I also encourage you to do some policy making, to talk to each other and see how we could create a new movement, a movement of international MPs. Thank you so much. Welcome. Have a great Pride. I will now give the floor to Senator Pilar Lima, representative of Podemos. Sit down, sit down. The microphone is now off. I'm really sorry, but I am deaf, so I'm going to have a translator talk on my behalf. Good afternoon. Be welcome to this home which I consider is my third home, because obviously the first is my home. The second is the street, together with social movements and their demands. And the third is this, the Senate. The Senate, as all institutions, is important. It is important in order to disseminate the information on the rights and to make our LGBT rights visible. We have to work from within the institutions. It doesn't matter at any level, municipal or higher instance. We have to work to make our collective LGBTI+ visible. We still have to give it the protagonism that it deserves. We can improve the situation in many ways. We can improve those rights that are not being recognized 100%. It's true that in my country, our marriage was accepted 10 years ago, and that was a very important step forward. But we mustn't deny the evidence, the truth. The reality is that there are still many people who are suffering from hatred crimes on a daily basis in our streets. The Ministry of the Interior in 2016 issued a report on hate crimes, and he said that the third reason for hate crimes was LGBTQI phobia. And that is why I am proud of the people, of the political party which is now in the institutions trying to change, trying to make really known that this is happening in the streets. We actually presented a law draft to talk about LGBTQI phobia. It is important to legislate recognizing rights, recognizing the rights of the collective LGBTQI+. And I encourage you all here today to thank the organization, this wonderful day's work, and thanking you for having chosen the Senate as its headquarters. And I encourage you all to change the world. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you. I will now give the floor to our Senator Tomás Marcos, representative of Ciudadanos. First of all, I would like to welcome you all to Madrid, a city that you will see is very hospitable. You will see it in this World Pride that we all are living. I'm a bit excited because I think that what we haven't said is actually what is happening right now. We have to talk about this. Talking about this in the Senate, such an isolated sometimes institution, separated from our day-to-day, our social reality. I would like to thank you all, to welcome you all from the bottom of my heart to the city. I also wanted to welcome you all on behalf of Albert Rivera, our national president, and the person who is the leader of our LGBTQI secretary, Ms. Reyes, who could not make it today but is following this event. And I also wanted to highlight something that my colleagues have said. Since I am the last one, I'm going to benefit from Javi, Pilar, and Ángeles' words because I think that they summarize something that we all believe in at Ciudadanos, and we have insisted on: freedom, equality, diversity, respect to LGBTQI collective, and keep on working for fair laws at the Parliament. And I also wanted to speak out for all the collectives, all the societies, all the anonymous people who on a daily basis have been fighting for the legislative realities, the one that we currently have in our country, which is not the one that we see in other continents or other countries. And I wanted to highlight the importance of the associations, of all of the anonymous people. And I wanted to remind you all of trans people who are usually forgotten by the LGBTQI movement. And I wanted to think of people who are not here amongst us. I also wanted to remind you all of Pedro, who was a friend of mine, and people who are not representing any political party, and they are on the streets working on a daily basis for civil rights, for the rights of lesbians, gays, transsexuals, transgender, bisexual, because we too exist, bisexuals, and intersexuals. And I wanted to dedicate this session to them. I'm not going to take any longer. I just wanted to once again welcome you all. We are here for you. If there's anything you need, you will see that we are hospitable, we are committed, and we are people who, you will see it during the Pride, that we know how to have fun on the streets. So welcome you all. And thank you all, and I hope that we will get something positive out of this for freedom, equality, diversity, and respect to all LGBTQI people.
Muchas gracias. Pues.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Javier Maroto, Ángeles Álvarez, Pilar Lima, and Tomás Marcos. Thank you on behalf of the Senate and the members of the Congress of Spain. So we're going to begin this session by referring to the summit, which took place at the beginning of this week, an important meeting where over 300 intervened in different sectors such as the elderly, the reality of trans people, African issues, European issues, and everything that is happening or should happen for us to have equal rights. And this summit ended with a declaration, which is the Madrid Summit Declaration, which has as its objective to summarize those conversations, those debates. So I would like to ask José Santoro to please read for all of us the content of this document.
Buenas tardes.
Good afternoon. The document is not very short, but I will try to read it as fast as I can. The Madrid Summit Declaration, which was approved yesterday at the Autonomous University of Madrid, says, all those assembled here and engaged in the organization and staging of this International Human Rights Conference of World Pride Madrid 2017, which has brought together over 200 activists from 46 countries across all 5 continents. I'm talking about activists, politicians, leaders in the fields of culture and education, with the distinguished participations of the UN, the European Parliament, the European Commission, ILGA Europe, ILGA World, Outright International, Victory Institute, Interpride, EPOA, Amnesty International, UNICEF, the Red Cross, the International Commission Against the Death Penalty, Instituto Demos Paz, Instituto Universitario de Estudios de la Mujer, el Instituto de la Mujer y para la Igualdad de Oportunidades, the Institute for Women and Equality for Women, Instituto de Derechos Humanos Bartolomé de las Casas, from the University Carlos III of Madrid, with the involvement of the embassies of Germany, the Netherlands, Sweden, Switzerland, the United Kingdom, Italy, Canada, and the United States, with the presence of the government representations of the Autonomous City of Buenos Aires, Canada, Costa Rica, and Uruguay, and with the support of the Comunidad de Madrid, the region of Madrid, the Town Hall of Madrid, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Cooperation, the Ministry of Health, Social Services, and Equality, and the European Parliament. We have as a clear motive and goal the promotion, defense, and the lobby for universal rights of all persons, and the purpose of laying the foundations for human rights with regards to human rights, with regards to orientation and gender identity. And we have as our common framework the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the Yogyakarta Principles, and the UN Declaration on Sexual Orientation and Gender Identity. And we reiterate that all human beings are born equal in rights and dignity and rights, and all people have the right to enjoy to their human rights regardless of their race, their color, their sex, their language, their religion, their opinions, national or social backgrounds, economic status, or any other circumstance. And we affirm that as universal, complementary, indivisible, and interdependent, we will not be able to make distinctions to which will affect persons or communities depending on their orientation nor by their gender identity with regards to these rights. We recognize the special vulnerability of those whose preferences, practices, orientations, and gender identities have meant that they have been and are discriminated, censored, persecuted, silenced, or judged and punished with cruel or inhuman treatments by states, societies, and cultures due to no other reason than the fact that they are non-conforming with a majority and normative standard. We understand that this historical moment that we find ourselves in and its demands need from us to be at the level of what we have to do for those who preceded us and those who will come after us. We have the need to have a memory that is multicultural, intergenerational, intersectional perspective, which acknowledges family and regional diversity and gender equality. We acknowledge and welcome and celebrate the various advances made in human rights in recent years. Nonetheless, we consider that we have to keep fighting for the rights of all people, given the numerous infringements that are committed in most parts of the world. We face, with responsibility and with caution, the new circumstances of domination, violence, and colonization which derive from digital communication technology. We therefore recognize the lack of specific regulatory treatment with regards to information, image, visibility, and sensitivities. And we know that there are legal vacuums that still exist concerning the image, rights to privacy, honor, and intimacy, while highlighting the need for free access to information for all people, as long as this does not serve as a surveillance and control tool for governments, companies, or persons to manipulate, censor, and repress. We emphasize the need to provide a special care for children and their rights in their condition of particular vulnerability in keeping with the Declaration of the Rights of the Child and the Convention of the Rights of the Child. We declare that the community referred to when speaking about sexual orientation and gender identity can be called LGBTQIA+, with the objective of validating each of the varying gender identities and sexual orientations through language, and including lesbian, gay, transsexual, queer, intersex, asexual, and we also have included plus as a symbol for inclusion, openness, and integration for a whole range of identities, including Two-Spirit, Leiti, Fafamine, Hira, Bandu, Kinar, Mushe, and all the other denominations which serve to assist the identity of every person, binary or not. Moreover, LGBTQIA+ aims to preserve the legitimate right to difference and any individual freedom by guaranteeing that every definition, proposal, grouping, or conceptualization must be made in order to protect the rights, sensibilities, and promotion of each individual's right.
We recognize the need to head towards equal rights of access to health and information for LGBTQIA+ people by implementing specific measures in research, education, and access to all healthcare. We demand the promotion of policies, practical, rhetorical, and discursive measures which highlight the defense and protection of human rights that must take the vulnerability of persons and communities like the LGBTQIA+, who are singled out, discriminated against, harmed, judged, disregarded, condemned, tortured, or executed as a result of their sexual and/or emotional orientation and/or gender identity. We call for all people to exercise their right to peaceful protest and assembly, a historically proven way of conquering rights, and to celebrate and secure the achievements made so far, as well as to denounce the vulnerable circumstances which are yet to be addressed. Hoping that between the closing of this World Pride 2017 International Human Rights Conference that took place yesterday and the beginning of World Pride New York 2019, the struggle we are engaged in for a world free of discrimination will be maintained, preserved, and developed. We trust, defend, and request that the international community accepts that it is opportune and essential that we formulate and agree upon an international convention in forthcoming years which will further the LGBTQIA+ human rights cause initiated by this conference. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, José Santoro.
Thank you very much, Mr. Santoro. For 3 minutes, I'm going to address you from here because I would like to officially open this session, a session which is so important and so relevant for every single one of us. When the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the first article that was indeed quoted in the Summit Declaration, established that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. We had just seen the end of the Second World War. 8 million Jewish people had been wiped off in the final stage just because they were Jewish. But throughout the 19th century, the perverse idea had prevailed that there were beings that were not human. Slaves didn't have any legal entity, they did not have any rights, and I think for centuries we will possibly be burdened by the inheritance, by the legacy of that lack of dignity. The same situation is happening around the world in many countries in regards to LGBTQIA+ populations. In many countries, we are at a stage that fortunately has been overcome in Spain and in many other countries around the globe, which is the struggle for the right to have rights, equal rights, just as the same as the rest of the population. As a lawyer, I always say this. We shouldn't consider the law is a fetish. The law is necessary to have rights. But then, public policies are also necessary. Public policies to implement those laws effectively and to lead us towards equal facts. Especially in the case of LGBTIAQ plus populations, there is a certain hint of tragedy because part of this population has suffered disproportionately the impact of poverty that arises especially from social, labor, educational exclusion, and that has been deprived from the most basic human needs, such as the need for shelter or for food. This happens everywhere across the world, and it still happens in many countries where indeed they have managed to implement the necessary legislative change to put into practice some equal rights, like, for instance, the right to equal marriage, the right to a legal identity that is in agreement with the identity that one feels. There is something that is still missing in many countries, and so that they don't mutilate intersex children. Everything that pertains with the creation of the mechanism for the inclusion of these intersex boys and girls, and specifically breaching the poverty cycle that burdens so many of our colleagues just because of being who we are. In these conditions, the visibility that we have had has caused fundamentalists to attack us using buses, to attack us using different actions, using many measures, and this goes to show that we are on the right track. They want to keep us in our closets. They want to keep us in the dark because whatever is not seen will not be regulated by public policies and will not be subject to equality. But we have decided to come to light. We have decided to come out of our closets. We have decided to fight for that equality. And as politicians, we have a responsibility. We have a responsibility not just to fight for the equality of the population that we represent, but rather for representing the rights of all people who could be excluded for whatever reason. We have suffered what exclusion is. We have suffered what segregation is. We have suffered what violence is. We have suffered what rights deprivation is. And we have a responsibility, not just towards the population that we're part of, indeed, but towards every single person that could be affected in any way in the development of their personality, and most importantly, in the achievement of the target that we all need to reach, which is equal rights and equal opportunities for every single one of us, without discrimination and in equal conditions. Thank you very much.
Y en este
And along these lines, I would like to give the floor to Ben Owen so that he can explain to us the tour de table that we will do, the round of interventions, so that we can take the floor. But if you're going to use the speaker's corners, I will kindly wait for you to be named so that everybody knows who's coming after who, and so that you can come close to the speaker's corner so that we can keep up the pace. So I will mention one speaker and then the next two, and if you will, you can also take the floor from your own positions, from your own chairs where you are currently seating. Ben, you have the floor. As the chairwoman said, you can take the floor from your own chairs. if you will, and you have 2 minutes 30 seconds to make your statements. When there's only 30 seconds left, I will raise my hand, and you know this is how we normally work in this room. And if you exceed the floor, then the chairwoman will punish you. Well, I will just hit the microphone. The first two speakers are going to be the following. First, we're going to actually watch a video from Xavier Vettel, the Prime Minister of Luxembourg, who has not been able to join us today. And he has submitted a video so that he can be present.
I'm so sorry I'm not able to be there with you. I have too much work for the moment in Luxembourg, but I wanted to address a video message to all of you. Firstly, I think it's very important to meet, to come together. Why? It is a topic which is not a national topic, it's an international topic. Having rights, defending rights, living together and living in society where you accept how people are. Yes, being gay, lesbian, transgender is not a choice. It is a fact. The most difficult decisions I had for myself was to accept myself. When I realized that I was not straight. I was different maybe for some. I was normal for me, but I had to accept it to myself. So being gay is not a choice, but homophobia is a choice. And we still should never forget that in some countries, being what they consider as different is still a crime. So meetings like yours, to be able to speak, to exchange, to listen to each other, to point out how campaigns could be there, to explain to other politicians that being different makes a strength of a country. If imagine a country where everybody would think the same, react the same, be the same, a nightmare. So being different is for me what makes the success of a society. So I wish to all of you good discussions, fruitful discussions, and to have really an international campaign to explain to sometimes parents, friends at work, friends in the family, that it was not a choice to be like I am today. But I accepted it. I was successful by being like I am. I just have one life, and I want to live it how I am, and not like other people would love me to be. So all the best, and hasta la próxima vez. Adiós.
Bueno, muchísimas gracias.
Thank you very much to the Prime Minister of Luxembourg for this first video. So we would give the first round of interventions to the MP for Belgium, Helge Stevens, followed by Randy Washonur, MP from Canada. And then I will take the floor again.
Thank you. Hello. As a heterosexual woman, I am proud to be here today among dedicated allies who are committed to helping LGBTQIA+ people fight for equality. As a deaf person, I know what it is like to be born with something that you can't change and that makes your life harder through no fault of your own. And I'll give you an example. Sign language was not allowed in the deaf school that I went to growing up. There were no sign language interpreters. There was no support for myself as a sign language user. So I understand what it's like to be somewhere and not be allowed to be yourself. And like disability rights, gay rights are human rights. Sexual orientation and gender identity are integral aspects of ourselves and should never lead to discrimination or abuse. Now, I want to make a special plea today that there can be no cultural exception to LGBTQIA+ equality. Culture, tradition, and religion are an important part of most people's lives. They provide a sense of identity, of home, and history. At their best, they bring people together, fostering bonds of community and family belonging. But not everything done in the name of culture, tradition, and religion is good. Think, for example, about child marriages or female genital mutilation. Also, the rightful claims for equality of LGBTQIA+ people are frequently blocked in the name of so-called threats to prevailing cultural, traditional, or religious value. This is even the case when it comes to straightforward anti-discrimination and anti-bullying programs. As if stopping employers from firing workers for being gay or transsexual, or tackling the brutal bullying of queer youngsters in schools might spoil culture and tradition for everyone else. Now, especially in Europe, where all countries have ratified the European Convention for Human Rights, there can be no excuse for not treating LGBTQIA+ people equally. It is therefore regretful that even in Europe, the equality picture remains very mixed. A brief look at the ILGA rainbow map teaches us that legal and policy progress is still uneven. When it comes to legal guarantees of equality and equal access to basic rights, scores range from Malta with 88% to Azerbaijan with a mere 5%. However, preaching to the choir is not going to get us any further down the road. Increased collaboration across borders and across political boundaries is the only way that we can make big advances in ensuring the human rights of all LGBTQIA+ people, and that they are respected across the world. Personally, I look forward to continuing the fight for equality and hope to remain closely engaged with you in the future. Thank you for your attention.
El diputado Randy Boissonneux de Canadá y seguidamente vendrá la
The deputy from Randy Vassonneau from Canada will take the floor, and then Randy Vassani from India will take the floor. Thank you very much to the World Summit and the Victory Institute. Merci beaucoup. It's a great pleasure to be here. I'm Randy Vassonneau, the Deputy General of Canada. I have supported Prime Minister Trudeau in LGBTQI matters, and it's the first time in 150 years that in our country we have a special advisor for any matter, and the first time that someone takes charge of LGBTQI topics. And I'm the first federal deputy that's openly gay elected in my province, in the province of Alberta, that used to be very conservative in the past. Therefore, I am here with great pride.
LGBTIQ2 rights in our country and around the world. 2 weeks ago, Canada passed legislation to protect transgender and gender diverse Canadians, and it passed the Senate, it went to royal assent, and now in the Criminal Code and in the Canadian Human Rights Act, transgender Canadians are protected. We are honored to co-chair with Chile for the next 2 years the Equal Rights Coalition, a group of 35 nations that came together in 2016 to defend and make sure that we stop violence and discrimination against LGBTI citizens around the world. Meetings like today are essential. We need to meet, we need to know each other, we need to see and get to know our tribe, regardless of how much diversity there is in that tribe. We need, until there are the full range of LGBTQ2I people in municipal, state, and national parliaments in every country in the world, our work will not be finished. These forums help us to share strategies, They help us to share tactics and best practices. There is strength in numbers. We must continue to use international meetings to meet, and I'm suggesting a meeting around CHOGM in the United Kingdom, and should we host in Canada the International Human Rights Conference as part of our commitment to the Equal Rights Coalition, that we have a formal meeting as well. This group should be formalized. We should know who we are, we should meet regularly, we should continue to grow, and we must continue to do so with allies at every step of the way. Equal marriage in Canada would not have passed without allies in that chamber. There were no LGBTI Canadians in the Parliament when equal marriage was passed, and there is strength in numbers, and when we get to work together, we will not be stoppable. We will have human rights for all. We will have LGBTI rights for all, and Canada will be there every step of the way. Muchísimas gracias.
Muchas gracias al...
Thank you very much to the MP of Canada, Randy Wassenol. Now I would give the floor to Apsara Reddy, policy spokesperson from India, and the next person will be Aline Smith, MP for Scotland.
Just for a very bad sore throat, I'll keep this quick, make a few observations. I think unity amongst micro-communities can be facilitated by political acceptance of all groups, not just tolerance, and not just tolerance and sympathy, but acceptance. I see a lot of discourse where people talk about tolerance, but very little about acceptance. I think acceptance is the key. Outreach has to go beyond HIV campaigns. Funding must be prioritized towards education, legal aid, medical assistance. I find certain countries, I'm not very sure about Europe, but I think a lot of campaigns are centered around HIV and health promotion, but I think medical aid in transitioning, in hormone treatments, in laser therapy for transgender communities, and also I think mentoring for the LGBT communities and suicide prevention should also be prioritized. The topic of diversity that most of you push for must be broadened to include disabled LGBT members, trans women both in legal and illegal professions. Only then can we offer help and power to mainstream and then offer them sustainable livelihoods. And the public celebrations of love and liberations must be allowed within the parameters of law and order without any malice or judgment. I find a lot of countries in paper are okay with pride celebrations, but when the actual permission has to be granted, kind of deny that. I think Shri, my colleague from India, will agree with me on that. I think in some cities it's still very difficult, not from where I come from, because the party that is in power I represent, and I think we're very open-minded, and I think we're the first party to give identity to LGBT members in terms of subsidies, in terms of provisions, in terms of employment. So I feel certain other cities should come, be raised to par to kind of partake in these celebrations. Summits such as these engage, educate, and empower global LGBT icons to further influence the electorate and people. This enables all disadvantaged LGBT communities and societies to seek strength and support. So please support such summits in your countries, in your cities, in wherever you come from, because I feel summits like this, which Jose has put together along with his team, are basically symbols of courage, dignity, liberation, and respect. All politicians must look at LGBT issues as human rights issues and a fundamental right to live with dignity. Some countries still look at LGBT as a fringe group which can be given minuscule budgets in a tokenistic way. We need a comprehensive inclusion in all funding projects, and I think social policy discussions in Parliament or Assembly, wherever you come from. We have to finally understand and accept that every aspect of your governance affects our community, and please encourage dialogue rather than handing out aid and sympathy. I think that's the least of our concerns. I think a comprehensive dialogue and true understanding and depth is very important. India as a country has come a long way. We have very liberated and well-networked LGBT communities. The political parties across the board are doing their best to legislate further to improve the lives of marginalized communities. So when referring to human rights violations in the sphere of LGBT issues internationally, please with caution and with verification, refer to India, because not always what you hear about India in the global press is true. Finally, I'd like to congratulate the Mayor, Manuela Carmena, and if I'm pronouncing that right, and the former Prime Minister Zapatero for their generosity and encouragement of this movement and for allowing voices like me to have a place here. Thank you very much. God bless.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much to my co-chair, Apsara Reddy. I would like now to give the word to Alan Smith, and I would like Ana Elena Chacón Echeverría to get ready, the Vice President of Costa Rica, after Alan Smith.
Thank you so much for the invitation. Muchas gracias. Thank you for the invitation to be here from Scotland. It's been a great pleasure for me to be here the past while, to see so many wonderful people celebrating pride, celebrating love, celebrating equality and diversity, making solidarity real. And I wanted to be here today to support Pride and this initiative because the need for international solidarity has never been greater. Scotland, like Spain, has come a long way. We are the top state in Europe after Malta for our equalities legislation, ranked by ILGA Europe. Of Scotland's 5 political parties, they are led by 2 lesbian women, 1 bi man, 1 straight man. I suppose we should give them something. And our First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, a straight woman who presides over a gender-balanced cabinet and a government that has equalities at its heart. You cannot be what you cannot see, but in Scotland, the people are well used to out-gay politicians in public life to an extent where we almost don't remark upon it. We have truly come a long way. But there's the good news. I also bring a warning. Things can go backwards. Progress is not inevitable, and it needn't be permanent unless we are vigilant and vocal and support each other. The United Kingdom, with the Brexit vote to leave the European Union, has shown that. Brexit has unleashed a wave of hate within our public life, within our streets. Hate crimes are up across the board. Xenophobia, anti-immigrant feeling and sentiment, disabled crimes, racist crimes, and against our community, LGBTI hate crimes are up since the Brexit vote 147% in the United Kingdom. We cannot afford to be complacent. Things can go backwards. Now, the whole point of equalities is that parliamentarians and people in public life can give people rights which are justiciable against, enforceable against our governments. And the people of Scotland and the United Kingdom, we face the prospect of our rights as European Union citizens being removed. In Scotland, against our clear democratic will, 62% of Scots voted to remain within the European Union. Now that's our fight, that's our struggle, that's our argument. But don't forget us, we count on your solidarity. My point in raising it here today is to learn from our experience. Progress is not safe. Populists and hate mongers are feeling confident across the world, many in elected office. We must mobilise. This is not a luxury project, this is a necessity for our community. So I entirely support the proposals today. You can count on my active support. As a template, a constructive suggestion, I suggest the LGBTI Intergroup of the European Parliament. That brings together MEPs from 28 different states in a structured cooperation where we can support each other in our own struggles and also speak with one voice in the wider world. Because, friends, there are forces who are mobilising against us and want to cut not just our rights, but the rights of other people too. And we need to make solidarity real across borders, but also across communities. So count me in. We've a job to do. Count Scotland in. Love beats hate, eventually. But it only will if we are actually active and support each other and mobilise, and events like this are so important. So count Scotland in. We won't let you down. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias al eurodiputado.
Thank you so much to our MP from Scotland, Alan Smith. And I will now give the floor to Ana Elena Chacón Echeverría, who is the Vice President of Costa Rica. And I want to warn the representative of Buenos Aires, Maximiliano Fernández. Thank you so much. As the Vice President of the country with the longest democracy of Latin America, but I think that democracy has to be built with more democracy. I really am happy to be here talking about the road that we have followed, this road of solidarity, 3 years after the administration, the Solis Rivera administration first arrived in power. We now have a more dignified country, a country where we really breathe solidarity, because this mandate as a state is that of having welfare for all the people. And I understood that many years ago because we have Since we have allowed people to talk about their anecdotes, I need to share my anecdote. When I became the mother of a person with a disability, you feel discrimination in your own skin, in your own body. And that's when I decided to be the champion of human rights of all people. And that's when your heart got all the colors in the rainbow. We understand that the rainbow needs to be within our fight for human rights. And that is why, because I am an MP of the Republic, I fought so much for LGBTQI rights, but also in the story of our country, we see segregation. But we have shown that we are willing to walk hand in hand, and this journey will always be a journey where we will be looking forward in order not to go backwards. All the institutions of the executive power, centralized and decentralized, need to be free from discrimination. We also have had for the trans population to fight so that their identity is present in all the institutions and in their job positions now within the Ministry of the Education. I was proud to be the leader of the process of 2 consultations during before the Inter-American Court for Human Rights to fight for legal safety for same-sex couples and for trans people who wanted to change their sex. That is why we are for this summit and all the initiatives that will come out of this process and this brothership and sisterhood where we work for solidarity. If there is still one person who is not being treated as they should with dignity because they do not follow the established social standards of what to be and what to feel, we will still have to fight to reach that horizon of equality for all of us, for all the individuals, all the people who live in this hemisphere. And as the Vice President, I wanted to once again repeat that we, during our mandate, have done everything that was to our reach so that we could have a greater dignity. There are some situations where we still have to fight, and I will keep on doing it with no fear and especially with lots of pride. Thank you so much.
Muchísimas gracias, Ana Elena.
Thank you so much, Ms. Elena Chacon. And now we will give the floor to Mr. Maximiliano Ferraro. He represents the Buenos Aires city in Argentina. And then we will have Ms. Andre Tang, the Digital Minister for Taiwan, and then Daniele Viotti, an MP for Italy. Thank you so much, Tamara, and good afternoon to all of you. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers of the summit. I would like to thank the Victory Institute for granting us this opportunity, for allowing us to work in this plenary session, this global plenary session. I want to thank you all, and I want to really celebrate this opportunity that we have, those of us who are committed to the LGBTIQ. For this possibility we have been granted to be together, to keep on building this community that is ever more proud and visible. And also, why not say so? I think that this opportunity that we have here today in Madrid, in the framework of the summit and the World Pride, demands from us to imperatively show that we are engaged to finding answers and to giving voice to those situations which are being suffered in many countries in the world, and that many people in the world are suffering, that go against the most basic principles, that go against human rights and the rights of the LGBTIQ rights. That is why I think that by disseminating the summit declaration and by sharing what is going to be tackled during this plenary session, we will be able to create, as MPs, as people responsible for public policies in our countries and in our cities, we will be capable of creating this great coalition for the rights of LGBTQI collective, an international coalition that will condemn hate crimes and the criminalization that LGBTI is suffering in many countries all over the world. Because it's true, we have made progress, we have obtained many victories, we have conquered many times over, and we celebrate it, and we will celebrate it during our Pride demonstration, just like we celebrated it during the month of November in Argentina. And these conquests, I am going to repeat as it has already been said, have to do with what we have inherited, with the fight, the fight of the LGBTIQ activists who fought before us. Many of those conquests, many of those laws that we have in our countries, and in Argentina, we're actually very proud of our equal marriage law and gender identity law. We have managed to do that thanks to the work of the LGBTIQ associations, who came hand in hand with the different political forces who worked with them. These are conquests. These are achievements that belong to all of us. But I think that these conquests, this increase of our rights or enlargement of rights, need to be protected by each and every one of us. We need to protect these rights very dearly. We all have to protect them. It is a personal opinion, but I'm sure you will share it. Because in the world we see the conservatism advancing, populists advancing, trying to fight against diversity, which is actually what enriches our democracies, our institutions, and our political system, and in our case, the Republican one. So in order to end, I would like to do so with a quote from one of the most important activists we had in Argentina, Carlos Jauregui. He used to say that in a society where we do not educate regarding shame, then abuse is still a political reality. So we have to understand that our collective LGBTIQ cannot renounce human rights, equality, and looking for fairness. Thank you so much.
Muchas gracias al diputado
Thank you so much to Maximiliano Ferraro. We now have a video from Audrey Tang, our digital minister from Taiwan, and then we will continue with the presentation by Daniele Viotti, our MP from Italy.
This is Audrey Tang, Taiwan's digital minister. I'm very happy to be here virtually to share with you some of my personal experience of being so-called the world's first transgender cabinet member. I'm very fortunate because in Taiwan, we're the first place in Asia to recognize marriage equality, but also our president, Dr. Tsai Ing-wen, was elected on this platform and also judged by her merits, not because she's anyone's wife or anyone's daughter. So it is against this political background that I entered cabinet as an independent. However, there is and was a lot of media attention around all sorts of different labels: a high school dropout, a civic hacker, a conservative anarchist, a post-gender minister. And I deployed two techniques to steer forward the society, not focusing on those labels, but instead of on policy discussions. The first is radical transparency. All the meetings that I hold, all the interviews, all everything, lobbying, is published at most 2 weeks after every meeting, online as transcripts and videos, and also as 360 videos. And the effect is that people don't need to ask the same question twice, and the journalists start asking deeper, ethical, policy questions, because if they ask any duplicate questions, I'll just post them the link that has happened before. The second technique is called troll hugging. There's a lot of people online who want to seek attention by posting words that seek to make people angry or make people feel sad. And I always engage personally online on anything that mentions me by name, but only to the words that offer constructive suggestion or criticism. Meaning that if someone posts 100 words, 95 of which are personal attacks, I only reply to the 5 words that are constructive, that gives the attention that they crave. And so after a couple months, the trolls all reformed to start talking about policy issues. As of personal feelings, I look at those 95 words of personal attack as massage. If I look at any words and feel not so well, I put on some good music, drink some tea, and next time around, when I look at those words, I start associating those to pleasant emotions instead of sad or angry emotions. So these are the 2 anecdotes and techniques, radical transparency and troll hugging, that as a out public servant, that seems to work well for me, and maybe will work well for you. Thank you for listening.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much, Audrey Tang, our digital minister from Taiwan. I will now give the floor to Daniele Viotti, MP from Italy. And now we have the Ecuador MP, Ms. Zambrano. Thank you so much, Ms. President.
To the organizer of the World Pride for this occasion. This is the very first incredible occasion to meet each other and to try to start to work together. Normally, I think we have more responsibilities in our work, in our chamber, in our assembly than our colleagues, because we have to do our job, of course, in our committees, in our assembly, and we have to continue because we are still activists, and we have to continue. We have to continue our fight, our activities, our job as activists on LGBTIQ plus issues. The Madrid Summit, I think, is important for us because from today, from this meeting, from this summit, from today, and this is my hope for the future, we can continue to work this job, to do this job, this work, our activities, our fight, no more alone, no more just as a representative representing our chambers or our assembly, but together, all together. And we can try to work together from now, from today, to fight against homophobia, transphobia, of course, and promote rights for everyone, everywhere, with a new extraordinary, I think, instrument, the Madrid Summit Declaration. At the end, I want to remember that full equality is the aim for LGBTIQ plus movement, of course. And our goal is an ambitious one, but we can't forget we are not fighting just for us and for our rights. We are fighting for everybody's rights, and we are fighting for women's rights, for children's rights, for example, and of course for immigrants' rights. Thank you very much. Obrigado.
Muchas gracias al eurodiputado Daniele Viotti.
I would like to thank the MP Daniele Viotti. We will now give the floor to the representative from Ecuador, Daniela Maria Rodriguez Zambrano. And just like in Europe, we currently have two gay prime ministers and one lesbian prime minister. In Latin America, we currently have two trans MPs. Currently, and Diane is actually one of them together with me.
Bueno, muchas gracias.
Well, thank you so very much. I would like to start off by saying that as a region, we have come a long way in terms of human rights for the LGBTI population, but indeed, trans and intersex populations are the last step for this whole collective. We are trying to overcome that. We know that we haven't finished our fights regarding sexual orientation, especially regarding our lesbian, gay, and bisexual colleagues. We're still involved in that process, but trans people are still struggling to have freedom of transit, to not be assassinated, for us to be entitled to studying. The access to our population has been very limited, and that has prevented many of us from having precisely fought those fights as we should have. There is a worldwide debt with gender identity. No one can deny that. It's a terrible debt, and the world will have to pay it at some point. And most importantly, the world needs to realize that we need to work in a joint manner, in a strong manner, and I'm very excited that this process has been devised. It is a very important process that will connect people that work for the well-being of LGBTQI populations and those people who are in the community like we are. We will be able to foster regional proposals to bolster and build our communities and our societies. For me, it's been very important to make progress in our country. We have made progress in terms of rights for gay people, inclusive health centers, protecting those people deprived from their freedom, who are part of the LGBTQI collective. And this means that we have made progress, but I'm not saying that we have reached the end of our road. We need to create public policies that we consider prudent at the regional level and at the continental level. That has been the case of this continent, where they have passed laws regarding adoption and marriage, and we hope that this will crystallize also in our Latin countries. I would also like to thank the Interparliamentary Session that we are enjoying right now, that has allowed us to work in a more executive manner, as has been mentioned earlier. We have also created a WhatsApp group that will allow us to connect more frequently. So apart from connecting, apart from seeing each other from time to time, we could use that WhatsApp group to be more operational, to answer questions that we may not be able to answer through regular meetings. And it will encourage that we exchange emails tackling these matters. That's all from me. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to Jean-Marie Rodriguez. And now we give the floor to the Subsecretary of Sexual Diversity Policies for the province of Rosario. Oh, sorry, the province of Santa Fe. From Argentina, Esteban Paulón. And the next speaker will be Lgbtqi Interparliamentary from Mexico. Thank you very much to the chairwoman and also to the Summit and the Victory Institute for having me. In line with what has been mentioned by previous speakers, we have, of course, made progress in many regions of the world in terms of rights. Currently, 22 countries have laws for equal marriage. So many other countries are discussing the possible passing of laws for equal marriage. There's been also great progress made in the regulation for the trans collective, but there's still a big breach between formal equality and real, actual equality. An equality that will allow us to be entitled to having a boyfriend or a girlfriend in our day-to-day life. We are entitled to marriage, but apparently walking hand in hand with our boyfriend or girlfriend down certain streets in the world, that puts us in a situation of unsafety, of lack of safety. So not being able to express our gender is also a right that we need to work on. As Diane said, the trans population has social indexes that determine that they're in a worse off situation than many other collectives. In Latin America, there is a lot of poverty among the collective, but if we analyze the group of young people, we will see that 40 to 45% of those young people do not have access to employment. But if we reduce it to the trans collective, that figure goes up to 90%. We have a 70% of trans people who have not had access to formal education, and a high percentage of them live in Latin America. Many people from 37 to 42 years of age are in this situation in our regions, and it's very important for the people who are in charge of public policies to be aware of this from the standpoint of their formulation in the parliaments, and from many other standpoints. We need to involve the executive branches, we need to involve the government so that we can close that bridge. that breach that there is, so that we can slowly but surely cover that gap, bridge that gap. It is very important to follow the dynamics that we're having here in this meeting, because as mentioned by the feminist movement, nothing can be done without us. So without us, it will be very difficult to actually materialize that dream of painting all hearts with the colors of the rainbow. Thank you very much, Esteban Paulón, Subsecretary for Public Policies in Argentina. And now we give the floor to the constituent Member of Parliament of the City of Mexico, Lgbtqi Castaneda Vadillo. And in a moment, we will also see a video from Sakele Mbembele. Hello and good afternoon. Thank you so very much to the Madrid Summit, and thank you to the Victory Institute for having us. I'm delighted and I celebrate this interparliamentary session because indeed this is the forum for us to establish bonds and to exchange experiences. The progress made in equality rights that we have achieved in our different countries go to mirror the social organization that we've had. The prioritization, the presence in political agendas, and also the public engagement that we have. Of course, some areas are more advanced than others. In Spain, they have come a long way. Nevertheless, in the rest of the world, we are not up to speed. We still have great challenges to face. And I think this kind of spaces, this kind of arenas will allow us to share our learnings and indeed determine the roadmap towards our objectives. In Mexico, we have started taking steps, but not across the whole country. In only 12 states of the Republic do we have marriage equality rights, and only in one of them we have a legal identity law for transgender people. This creates an inequality gap, which is huge. And in the City of Mexico, which is where I undertake my activities, we have a sanctuary city where human rights, equality, and freedom have recently entered the first constitution of the City of Mexico. This first constitution positions us as a main axis for human rights. And I would like to mention that we have a social movement that is 46 years of age. I'm part of it. I am a lesbian. I fostered equal marriage in 2009. I was one of the people in the first marriage between lesbians in Latin America. We had to ask institutions to recognize our rights, to fight for social security and many issues that this entails. And this is why in our city, these rights, our rights, are very important. This is why we got engaged in the definition of this constitution. And I would like to mention that this is the first constitution in the world that specifically mentions the rights for lesbians, gays, transsexuals, transgender, transvestites, and intersexual people. And it guarantees equality, non-discrimination, the recognition to the families in general. It recognizes self-determination and the free development of personality. We separate sexual rights from reproductive rights so that we can indeed focus on our public policies. I think this is an example that I hope will be useful at some point for other parliaments, for other movements. But what I would sure like to underline is that what joins us together is that we want to bring about equality. So all the borders, all the ideological, cultural, religious borders that have been drawn, they're just imaginary borders. We can now start recognizing ourselves in this great multicultural puzzle. And all together, we can start building the progress towards overcoming the challenges that lay ahead. Thank you very much to the constituent MP, Lola Castañeda. And now we have a video from Zakel Mbele, member of the South African Parliament. And after that, we will give the floor to the European MP, Julie Ward, who will be able to use the Speaker's Corner.
My name is Zakel Mbele. I'm a member of Parliament from South Africa, and I have the honor, I guess you'd call it, of being the first openly gay black member of Parliament, both in South Africa and in Africa as a whole. It's a pity that I could not be there at the summit in person, but unfortunately my parliamentary program prevented travel to be there. So I've been asked to join in the debates and in the session via this video recording. And I've been asked to share my thoughts on two things mainly. The first is my experiences as an openly gay politician in South Africa. And secondly, my thoughts around prospects for cooperation amongst openly out LGBTQI politicians and public office bearers around the world. So on the first topic, I must say I've been quite fortunate to have had a fairly easy experience throughout my career in politics, because I belong to what we call a liberal party, basically a party that is founded on the philosophy of individual freedom being at the core and the forefront of our vision and our outlook. It's a very enabling and LGBT friendly space to be as a political organization. So I've experienced no prejudice, harassment, victimization, discrimination, being openly gay, and in fact, being a gay member and a gay politician is embraced and celebrated within my party because we uphold diversity as one of our values. And sexual orientation, gender identity is one of the aspects in which my party recognizes and affirms diversity. So in that sense, I've been very lucky, a very different experience from what most gay people would experience in my country. And in terms of prospects and thoughts on cooperation internationally amongst out politicians and public office bearers, I think it's important to try and be pragmatic. I've always been a big fan of a project-based approach, focusing on defined issues within reasonable and practical timeframes so that you achieve concrete outcomes that can be built on for future projects and future programs. I think it might be a little naive to think that just because a group of politicians share the same sexual orientation or the same sexuality, that would overcome other barriers that exist in politics. If you don't share the same ideas, vision, and outlook for politics, governance, and society, being gay people together in itself will not overcome that. So I think it's important to achieve outcomes by focusing on the cross-cutting areas of common interest, mutual benefit, which really should center on advancing, promoting, and defending human rights. It's very important to frame the advances that LGBTI people seek to make within the broader human rights framework, because human rights are indivisible and they apply universally. And therefore what we're doing is to try and fight for recognition and our space as LGBTI people within a human rights ethos and within the building of the open society across the world. So I hope those thoughts are valuable and worthwhile to contribute to the discussions and the debates that you have there today. I wish you great luck in your deliberations, and I look forward to seeing the outcomes of that and to make my contribution from this part of the world in the greater global agenda for human rights and freedom and equity and realizing a better life for all. Thanks very much.
Tiene la palabra la eurodiputada.
I now give the floor to the Member of Parliament for the UK, Julie Ward, and the next speaker will be my friend Carla Tonelli because Eduardo Petrini has not been able to attend.
Of the EU's Charter of Fundamental Rights prohibits discrimination, including on the basis of sex or sexual orientation. And the European Parliament's Women's Rights and Gender Equality Committee, which I'm a member of, actively promotes LGBTI plus rights. We're adding the A and the Q after this. Well, I've been adding it anyway. But however, at times the issue can be sidelined. But I always make sure to include these rights in all of my work and to make the point that gender should not be seen only in terms of men and women, and that family is not just man plus woman married with 2.2 children. So I'm vigilant across different committees, and I table LGBTI plus rights amendments to reports about everything from business development to the refugee crisis. In February 2017, the European Parliament adopted a report that I co-authored on gender mainstreaming in the European Parliament, which set out how the Parliament must include a gender perspective in all of its work. Together with ILGA Europe, we managed to adopt a text with a clear and comprehensive agenda for mainstreaming LGBTQ plus rights and well-being into the Parliament's work, both in terms of the day-to-day running of the Parliament and also in terms of policy making. The Parliament also has a large cross-party intergroup on LGBTIQ plus rights, which coordinates policy making among political groups and committees, and many of the people from the European Parliament here today are members of that group. We flag up important issues, we offer training on such things as intersex issues, we raise awareness and we mount campaigns. And the work of the intergroup has been very useful in informing and shaping MEPs' agendas. In 2015, the European Commission published a list of actions on LGBTI rights, recognising the need for a legislative and policy move forward. The list includes commitments to improve enforcement and implementation of anti-discrimination law, advance recognition of LGBTI partnerships, marriages and families across Europe, and funding for public campaigns and greater monitoring. Then in June 2016, the Council of Ministers adopted conclusions on LGBTI rights for the first time in the EU's history. It essentially endorsed and supported the Commission's action and called for accelerated progress. However, worryingly, the text included the reference, accelerate progress, fully respecting the Member States' competences, national identities and constitutional traditions. And this was seen by our activists as essentially acquiescing in existing systematic discrimination. Hungary was the only state to oppose the conclusions. My group, the S&D group, adopted a position paper on LGBTI plus rights in May 2016, emphasising the need to ensure freedom of movement for LGBTIQ plus people and families, and to take urgent action on the rights of trans and intersex people, as well as fighting against hate speech towards the community. The EU stands up for LGBTIQ plus rights people around the world as part of its human rights agenda, as is included in the Commission's lists of actions. And when the persecution of allegedly gay men began in Chechnya some months ago, I was one of the MEPs to immediately raise the issue through the parliamentary question to Federica Mogherini, the High Representative. And the European Parliament then adopted a resolution on the situation in May. The Parliament also uses its influence to promote LGBTIQ+ rights in neighbourhood countries. And in June, the Parliament adopted reports on Kosovo, Serbia and Montenegro, and all included calls to improve the situation of our community there. We have recently been doing more to raise the topic of intersectionality, giving more visibility to the term and the approach it entails, as with the other EU agencies. For example, the Fundamental Rights Agency has recently published a report on the discrimination faced by LGBTIQ+ Roma people, and the current draft report on anti-Gypsyism going through the Parliament, on which I'm co-authoring a gender equality opinion, includes an intersectional perspective on the experience of Roma women and LGBTIQ+ persons. Finally, we must be there for all those whose rights are under attack. Xenophobic political rhetoric has been amplified in the press and regressive forces are on the march. And I'm especially proud of the pink bus that took aid to the mainly Muslim refugees in Calais and Dunkirk from my country, the UK, and also proud of the LGBTIQ+ steelworkers, trade union members who supported the coal miners' gala last year in Durham. Our movement must be out, loud and proud on the streets and in the palaces of power, and this summit is a defining moment. Thank you.
Muchas gracias a la eurodiputada.
Thank you so much to Julie Ward, the MP. We will now give the floor to the MP of the Madrid Assembly, Carla Antonelli, and then we will have Alex Greenwich, who is a member of the South Wales Assembly. Thank you so much. I'm going to try to talk about the Spanish historic process, our laws, how much progress we have made. But first of all, I would like to say how very thrilled I am that my country, Spain, is welcoming you all in this World Human Rights Conference, this interparliamentary session of LGBTQI MPs from all over the world, especially considering that 38 years ago in this country, we were being sent to jail for the fact of being homosexuals. And only 12 years ago did we finally see the light at the end of the tunnel with our equal marriage, thanks to our president, José Luis Rodríguez Zapatero. But not just equal marriage, but also 10 years ago, this country passed a law for gender identity for transgender people, which allowed us to finally change our national documents, national identity documents, without having to undergo genital surgery. It was simply an administrative procedure. It is a pioneer law, which was an example that was followed by other countries such as Argentina, who not only copied it but improved it, depathologizing it, considering that genital surgery was not necessary because our dignity should not undergo an operation. And I have the great honor of being the first transsexual woman who's an MP in this country, the second transgender woman who's an MP in Europe. And although it might seem silly, the fact that I am one of the first, or the fact that we are some of the first, because today the Senate is filled with firsts, first women, first men, transsexual, gays, lesbians, bisexuals, who are for the first time here, just means that up till now, it could not be a possibility. It wasn't real. So we have started a journey that we mustn't stop. We want for this to be useful. We want all of us to be in touch. All of us MPs who are here have to be in touch to improve this world. We have to be in contact so that we can allow for what Pedrolo said to become a reality, to build this rainbow society. In the gender identity law, I had the honor of participating in its drafting. Now our group, the Socialist Party, has registered in the Congress its reform for the complete depathologization of the law, for including minors, for resident cards, for foreign transgenders. Last year in this region, in the region of Madrid, I was the spokesperson for the integral transgender law for the region of Madrid, one of the most advanced laws in the world that attacked in a comprehensive manner all of the situations where we suffer some kind of discrimination. We, women, men, children, and underage. And we are now in the fight of enforcing it, because it's true, we take the picture when the laws are passed, but then we just relax and the governments relax, and it is very difficult to have them enforced. But never doubt it, this region is going to enforce this law. So let's keep on fighting, all of us, and let's all be proud to be Spanish and to have lived all these 40 years of transition and seeing my country and seeing this capital city, Madrid, become that of the rainbow. This palace of the presidency of the region where we were detained, where we were tortured, are now shining with the colors of the rainbow. So let's keep on advancing. Let's advance. Thank you so much.
Muchas gracias a la
Thank you so much to our MP from the Madrid Assembly, Carla Antonelli. And now Alex Greenwich may approach the speaker's corners. He is an MP from South Wales, Australia, and I would like to warn Shane Conn that he is the next speaker. He comes from the US.
Madrid and the Victory Institute for this wonderful plenary session. I am honoured to join you here from Sydney, Australia, to be part of an important session where we come together to learn, work and support each other. And in that spirit, I'd like to particularly acknowledge and thank Esteban Paulon from Argentina, who I worked with 5 years ago to ensure that foreign same-sex couples could marry in Argentina. And indeed, my husband Victor and I were lucky enough to be one of the first couples to marry there. So thank you, Esteban. Obviously, it does surprise many people that in Australia we are still campaigning for the freedom to marry. Remarkably, Australia can enter the Eurovision Song Contest, but we cannot get married. We are grateful, though, for the strong international support that exists, and indeed we are hopeful to be able to achieve marriage equality in Australia soon. And obviously, the great news and progress from Germany, from Taiwan, and indeed from Malta is giving us great hope and encouragement in Australia. Of course, throughout our region, there are many very great challenges for our neighbouring countries in the Asia-Pacific region. Just months ago, in the Aceh region in Indonesia, 2 gay men were caned publicly simply for being gay. And of course, across the Pacific, there are many countries where homosexuality is still a criminal offence. Indeed, throughout the Asia-Pacific region, as we have heard throughout the past couple of days, the state of LGBTI rights, particularly trans and intersex rights, is indeed in desperate need of greater support. But moments like these give me great hope. More and more of us around the world, openly LGBTIA+ elected and appointed officials, are there to watch and indeed to act to protect our LGBTIA+ family members across the globe. Our movement continues to grow with great strength towards making the world a better place. So my message to all of you colleagues is to thank you for your unwavering work towards a country, towards a globe that really seeks to celebrate fairness and equality for all.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much to Alex Greenwich from New South Wales in Australia. And we will now give the floor to Mr. Shane Conn, Alderman City from St. Louis in the U.S.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure to join everyone. Unfortunately, I don't see any other folks from the United States here today, which might actually illuminate some of the issues that we're facing in the United States at the moment. As many of you know, we've made great strides as a country in the advancement of LGBTQIA issues the past 8 years underneath President Obama's administration. And unfortunately, now we're facing a really perilous situation throughout our country with the current administration of President Trump and Vice President Pence. For those of you that aren't familiar, they're already rolling back regulations in our country that have been executive orders issued by the previous administration and are really starting to assail LGBTQIA rights across the board. Vice President Pence comes from a state where they passed a religious liberty law that actually allows discrimination against LGBTQI people in an open environment. And actually also he believes in gay conversion therapy. So, I do have to thank my neighbors to the north in Canada for the wonderful shining example that you all are providing to the rest of the continent, and also Mexico is doing a really wonderful job as well. But all of us who are openly gay and elected leaders within the United States are actively trying to formulate plans within our own communities to make sure that we are continuing the battle. I actually just had the great fortune of being able to run a half marathon in one of our wonderful national parks, which is also under assault by the current administration, Yellowstone. And on my way back home to St. Louis, Missouri from Yellowstone, came across Laramie, Wyoming. And I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with Laramie, Wyoming, but in 1998, there was a young man by the name of Matthew Shepard who was beaten to death in Laramie, Wyoming, and left to die. For several days, his body was tied to a barbed wire fence along a farm, and his bloodied body was actually discovered by a bicyclist and was confused for a scarecrow. And it reminds me of the journey that we've made and the progress that we've made as a country. I was a teenager when that happened, afraid to come out to myself and be myself. And to think that just a few short years later, I am the first openly gay elected serving in the city of St. Louis. And there's many of us across the state of Missouri and across the nation that are serving with pride and dignity and trying to make a difference in our LGBT community. And it, like many of you, this heartens for me, the support that we have, not just in our communities locally, but across the globe. And I look forward to working with you all and add my name to the list, and certainly anything I can do to help rally things in the United States and across the globe to support you all, I'm happy to do as well. Thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sean, the alderman of St. Louis, Missouri. And we will now watch a video by the MEP Ulrike Lunacek, so that we may continue afterwards with Kevin Peel from Manchester, UK. Welcome to this plenary session, the Interparliamentary Session, LGBTQIQ. My name is Ulrike Lunacek. I'm Vice President of the European Parliament. I am a deputy of the Austrian Greens in the European Parliament, and I am the co-president of the intergroup LGBTQIQ in the European Parliament. I am really sorry I couldn't make it to Madrid, but I am very happy to at least be able to participate with a few words with this video message. It is really very important. It has always been very important for me to consider two things in my life as a lesbian and as a politician. And ever since 1995, when for the first time I was a candidate for the Green Party in my country, in Austria, but also as a lesbian, because I was the first Austrian lesbian who was openly gay, or who openly showed that she was lesbian. First of all, it's visibility, and the second is laws, because the first one does not work with the other one. We need laws, we need equality, we need equality, legal equality for everything, but we also need visibility. We need the visibility of all of us. Even nowadays, there are so many politicians, professionals in the world of economy, the world of sports, who do not dare to be openly gay, to be openly lesbian, bisexual, gay, trans, intersex. And that's very important, because with visibility, we make straight people, some of the straight people who are afraid of us. I don't know why they're afraid of us, but it helps them not be afraid, not be frightened of us, and they realize that we're just human beings like anybody else. So for me, it is very important to have both visibility and laws. I am very happy for you to have this plenary session, and my colleagues will be telling me, my colleagues from the European Parliament, how it was, and I hope I will be able to work with you in the future. I hope you are very successful, that you will enjoy this plenary session, and together we will manage to have equality all over Europe and also in other parts of the world, so that we can improve LGBTQI issues all over the world. Thank you very much. See you soon. Thank you so much, Ulrike Lunacek, MEP from Austria. And I will now give the floor to Kevin Peel, who is the representative of Manchester in the UK.
Thank you very much. I'm a city councillor in Manchester, but I also represent local government on the European Committee of the Regions, which provides the voice for local and government in EU decision making. I feel really honoured and privileged to be here addressing you at the first, but I certainly hope not the last, Global LGBTI Interparliamentary Plenary Session. I grew up in a really small town, a village really, near Liverpool in the northwest of England. I was quite literally the only gay in the village at the time, and I didn't really have a great time growing up. I was bullied and very much an outcast. LGBTI people didn't really enjoy the protections in the UK that we do now back then, and there were virtually no role models on TV or in the media to look up to. We've come a very long way in my country and in many other countries, but this story could still be told today by so many young LGBTI people growing up in dozens, over 100 countries in the world. Homosexuality is still criminalised in over 70 countries, and in many others, LGBTI people are offered few protections and face discrimination and persecution, and trans and intersex people in particular are being beaten and murdered at an alarming rate. I never dreamed growing up that I'd get elected to public office and end up in a place like this among such esteemed company talking about these issues. And so I want to use my remaining time to urge action. Now more than ever, we need global political leadership to drive forward this agenda. And we need that leadership at every level, in our towns, in our cities and regions, in state and national government, and international level institutions such as the EU and the UN. And Randy, your words made me very happy. For several years, I've used every opportunity at all sorts of events like this to talk about the idea of a formal network of local political leaders from across the globe. But it isn't just at a local level where we need such leadership, we need it locally, nationally and internationally. And I'm delighted with the recommendations from today's session to continue this multi-level and multinational engagement. But it isn't just about providing expertise to a colleague looking to do something innovative somewhere else, important though this is. We should use the network to provide a united voice in coming together to lobby for policy change at every level, to share best practice, to spread the great work that's taking place, and to support the work of brave leaders like my friend and colleague, Sedef Çakmak, who I can't see here, but has been here this week, the only out LGBTI politician in Turkey, fighting for equality in a country where it's increasingly unsafe to do so. And I know that she and many others in that situation would appreciate that support. But it needs practical and financial support from the partners involved, a strong board and dedicated staff team in order to make that happen and sustain it on a long-term basis. So I think that's something we just have to consider when we move forward from this. I hope that you'll all agree that the network is vital if we're to achieve full equality for all LGBTI people, no matter where they live, and I hope that this interparliamentary session is the first step towards achieving that goal. Thank you.
Muchas gracias por la intervención.
Thank you so much for the representative of Manchester. Thank you, Kevin Peel, for your intervention. We will now give we will not be able to give the floor to Sedef Çakmak since he couldn't make it. And we have two final interventions together with some last-minute interventions that have been incorporated. So we will give the floor to a representative of the Town Hall of Madrid and the region of Madrid, who have been doubtlessly the institutions that have been most active in the promotion of this session, today's session. And that is why I would like to invite to the stand Purificación Causapié, who is a councilwoman at the Town Hall of Madrid. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Before I begin, I would like to just thank those who came before us. We have said that in this country we have gone through very important processes. We have talked about two people, President José Luis Rodríguez Zapatero. We have talked about Padre Cerolo, who was someone seminal for the advancement of LGBTQI rights in this country. And I also wanted to talk about Carla Antonelli, because without her in this country we wouldn't have made as much progress as we have. So Carla. Not only a colleague, but a friend. Well, you have sent us some questions, and I want to try and answer them. You asked, what can we do? Well, I think that it is basic to have visibility. We need to all be visible. All of us who are here today, all LGBTQI people all over the world, but I also want to say that very often women complain about the fact that for us it's even more difficult to find that visibility. Lesbian women have many more obstacles to gain that visibility because discrimination is much more real, much more obvious, and sometimes it's subtle. And sometimes that lack of visibility, we find it in the LGBTQI movement itself. Sometimes I see that feminine models of the LGBTQI movement are heterosexual women and not lesbian women. I think that it is the moment for women to say we want to be visible. The movement cannot just be a movement made up of men, of males. We need to have a greater visibility. And this visibility, I believe, mustn't hide the fact that LGBTQI reality is quite diverse, and most people find it very difficult to find a job, to live a fair life without discrimination. Very often when we find models, references, they're success cases, but those success cases are just minorities in our collective. So I think that we need to keep on working against discrimination. And with regards to policies, which is what we all can agree upon, policies that need to be promoted, I also wanted to highlight something. We need to have policies that will reinforce the positive actions and everything that has to do with freedom, equality, and democratic advancements. In this city, in this society, celebrating World Pride has been easier because institutions have given their support to it. We have Juan Carlos, we have the organizations who set it up. During other moments when we had a mayor who just supported us with a slogan because she said that you cannot mix apples and pears, it was a bit more difficult. It would have been possible, but a bit more difficult. We need to have involvement with public institutions. So we need this. We need public policies that are adequate. And in this city, we also have made some proposals, and we're still fighting for it. For instance, an office against hate crime, something that we proposed at the Socialist Party. We have Arcopoli, for instance, the observatory, and I want to recognize them as well because they're not going to be given the floor. But there are different in the movement, we see that there are different actions and different projects, and we at the institutions need to give our support to those LGBTQI actions, and we need to find this complicity. So as Carla was saying, we need to keep on advancing and working. Thank you so much.
And finally, we come to the end of the first round of interventions, and we give the floor to Bosco Labrado, the regional minister for Madrid. Well, I will be brief. This is the last intervention. Firstly, I wanted to thank the organizers for having put together these sessions, because I think they're necessary to create collaboration networks and to establish spaces for us to present efficient initiatives that will help us solve the problems that the different collectives face on a daily basis. As couldn't be otherwise, being a regional minister for the city, I have the honor of welcoming you to this city, the city of Madrid, a diverse city, a welcoming city that unfortunately sometimes suffers hate crimes, but they're isolated, and we need to combat them, to fight them from educational values. As Tomás Marcos said, we need equality, diversity, and respect. Those are the values that we need to educate people about. And we shouldn't forget that the higher objective for this session is to achieve that real equality. Undoubtedly, being an elected official makes us visible enough, and thus we accept the commitment, then the responsibility, and we come to realize what we could mean for the advancement necessary. And it's also important to foster active listening. We need to listen, and we need to ponder things so that we can approach the collectives here today, like Arcopoli and Kogan, so that we can present proposals that aim at indeed solving the problems that we find on a day-to-day. We know that there's political discrepancies, but we are joined by one only goal. And I would like to pay tribute to Carla Antonelli. She was my idol when I was young. And a tribute to Pedro Cebolo, who showed me that politics serve the purpose of giving visibility, and we need to praise people like you who have taken those great steps for this collective that have ultimately resulted in this great advancements. And of course, apart from welcoming you from the city, we want you to know that we are raising the voices of many people, millions of people in the world who are hung, who are beaten, who are threatened in many areas of the world. And let us not forget that many people join us for these parties, for these celebrations, but let us not forget that we are here and expressing the voices of those who cannot raise them in their own countries. Thank you very much, Bosco Labrado. We are a bit behind. Time's pressing. Even though we started 20 minutes after we should have, we are now accumulating a 7-minute delay on top of that. But we want to give the floor to everybody. Former people asked for the floor, and we want them to enjoy that right. So we're going to give 1 minute to each one of them. We will start with Vanessa Angustia Gomez, who is a senator. But please do participate from your seat because it's easier. Thank you, Chairwoman. Thank you to the Summit and to the Institute for giving us this wonderful space to discuss. Welcome you all to this space. It's a reason for us to be proud of because we have the rainbow flag on the door. And this is due to the fact that we presented an institutional declaration that has been supported by all the groups in this chamber. And for the first time ever, we have this flag here in this chamber of the Senate. I would like to welcome one person behind me, Federico Estajeros, chairman of the Elderly People LGBTQI 26th of December, who's a fighter who has suffered the struggle during Franco's regime, and he currently fights so that in our golden years we don't have to go back to our closets. We have 3 challenges to face. All of us have to face them. There are international challenges to be faced. There are 72 countries in which our right to be is criminalized, and in some cases it's criminalized with death penalty. We need social justice, education, equality, sexual and reproductive rights. We need to prevent the mutilation of intersexual young people. We need legal identities that represent us, that represent our identities. We need marriage. We have thousands of rights that we all need to conquer at the international level. We need to make visible what's most invisible in our collective. Transsexual people, adult and young, intersexual people, people who do not identify with any binary gender identifications. And finally, we need to tackle other challenges. I'm a woman, I'm bisexual, and I have a polyamory relationship. I want to thank you all because this was possibly the only closet that still I had to open, this parliament. So thank you for allowing me this chance. Senator Vanessa Angustia. And by the way, I'm about to conclude. What I am leaves me outside of the patriarchal structure. It's essential that we join our forces with feminism because we have all been attacked and they're trying to put an end to us. Patriarchy affects us all and we need to go back to this fight together with feminism. Allow me to conclude by saying that we need to use this space. We are fighting for our right to be, and it is our obligation to fight from the institutional level all together and at an international level too, so that we can open the doors to every single closet, also the institutional closets. Thank you so very much. Thank you, Senator. Indeed, feminism is the Northern Star for this struggle. Now we give the floor to the Congressman Antonio Untaro Urrera. Thank you. It's a pleasure for me to be here with all of you. When you take part in the demonstrations, you will realize, when you take part of the parade, you will realize how we live in the LGBTQI collective in this country. And this is an unstoppable train. This is an unstoppable train. You will see how the passengers of this train, of this protest, is full of young people. Protests like the one of the 1st of May normally showcases many elderly people. But in this case, we have many, many young people. Yesterday, I was at a parade, at a protest yesterday in the city of Córdoba, and I was impressed by how young the attendees were. But we have a special mission, which is to guide the train in the right direction, because the train is going at full speed. But us, with the possibilities that we have at the political level, our power to influence and our permanent analysis of the situation of reality, with all those things, we have an essential function to carry out, which is to guide and to streamline this very powerful energy that we have in the society, an energy that supports the LGBTQI collective. We talked about visibility, we talked about closets, that has been mentioned here, but all that is a response to fear. And there's no vaccine against fear that is more efficient than education. And I must say that this forum is very important because we will state the direction, and in that direction we need to prioritize education and educational systems, because laws are important, but even more important than law is to apply it, to make it applicable. So the vaccine against fear is education. Educational systems need to raise awareness since a very early age, so people know what it means to accept and respect sexual diversity. So education, education, and education. This train is unstoppable. It's impossible for it to stop, but it needs to go in the right direction. Thank you very much, Congressman Antonio Hurtado Herrera. Now we give the floor to Eolia Villanueva Ruiz. She couldn't attend, sorry. So now we give the floor to the provincial regional minister, Fran Ferri. Is he here? Yeah, he's here. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As you said, I'm a regional minister in the Valencia Congress. In 2011, I joined as the first activist gay member, being part of the electoral list of my party, and I was the first MP, the first out MP in Parliament. I think we need to tackle two main topics that are relevant for every single one of us here as politicians and as representatives of citizenship. The first element is something that the LGBTQI collective has always mentioned, which is visibility. Visibility that makes us a reference, a positive reference for our citizens, citizens that often suffer discriminations themselves. I am moved every time some young person from a rural area, from some little town, writes me telling me that they're very happy to have me as a reference in the institutions, or people like me as a reference in the institution, because it's a great support for them in their day-to-day life. And the second point is political action. It's very important for all of us to be committed towards political action so that we can indeed implement an agenda for the rights of LGBTQA people. And also in conservative parties, they're starting to realize this. Political parties that have indeed taken the floor here, because quite often these political parties talk about the transphobic bus that drove around all of our regions, and they need to realize this too. We've mentioned great references here, such as Carla Antonelli, Pedro Cerolo. They have been great references for us, but we also have to recognize as political representatives the great importance of LGBTQIA movements. We wouldn't be where we are without them. Without those movements, all the people who represent the LGBTI in parliaments and institutions, we wouldn't be here. So we need to recognize the actions undertaken by those people that conform the movement. To conclude, all of our achievements will not remain if we don't make them settle and if we don't continue to make progress. So, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, let us make progress so that we don't take steps back. Let's continue to advance, to move on, because this needs to be something stable. This indeed needs to be something with a powerful and dynamic agenda that will keep the momentum, which is the only way to never take any steps back. Thank you very much. Now we give the floor to the provincial representative from Valencia, Isabel Sanchez. Good afternoon, everybody. First, I would like to congratulate the organizers for this encounter, and of course, I would like to especially greet you from the chairman of the region of Valencia, who hasn't been able to be here. He would have loved to attend, but he is sending his greetings to all of you. At this time of the session, practically everything has been mentioned. I just wanted to emphasize the importance of working in a network so that all politicians present here today work jointly so that we can articulate common policies about LGBTI rights across the globe. Something that has been mentioned by other colleagues is also that we need to use our privileged position so that we can become a reference for those who are still suffering difficulties to come out. And I do want to make a remark that is a bit different from what has already been mentioned. We need to highlight rural environments. I come from an institution in which our representatives are halfway between the municipalities and the regional governments. And in my time there, in that institution, I have realized that in a population such as the region of Valencia, where about 60 to 70% of areas are rural areas, it is very important to work with people in the little towns, people in rural areas, people who do not enjoy the same possibilities as the ones who inhabit large cities. They do not have the same access to information or the same possibility of encountering people who share the same situation, and they lack references. So I would especially highlight the work that needs to be done in those environments. And to wrap up, I also need to say that I was the first lesbian deputy or representative in the Diputación, in the regional government. Until a year and a half ago, we didn't even have an equality delegation, an equality area. But when they offered me the possibility to access that position, I did think of many people who I've been lucky to have as references in my life, such as, for instance, Pedro Cerolo and obviously Carla Antonelli. We are in the same party, but we're also from the same origin. We're also from the Canary Islands. They're from Tenerife, and I'm from Gran Canaria, so we share our origins too. But I would like to finish by quoting another colleague, Ángel Gabilondo, who about a couple of years ago said that we need to continue on working for the right to difference, but without difference in our rights. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Isabel García Sánchez, the provincial representative from Valencia. And this is how we will conclude the discussion. I will be giving just a maximum of 5 minutes for the discussion, no more than 1 minute per person. If you could please introduce yourself. Good afternoon. My name is Elvis Nemet. I come from the Caribbean Corporation Afirmativo in the Colombian Caribbean. It's very fortunate for me to be here because and I've had the pleasure to travel here to Europe, and I would like to harness the situation. I would like to encourage you to not forget what our organizations do, because we educate our citizens, we train our citizens on political issues too, because it's true that often LGBT people do not take part in politics because of fear. It's very important that, for instance, in Colombia, we have started talking about the peace process. We have municipal peace desks, and those spaces are open for everyone's participation. So people need to occupy those spaces. We need to train everybody so that we can have trans women, bisexual people, and lesbian women in those areas that encourage political participation. So we do advocate for people to find support. Those people who have suffered sexual harassment, they need support too from any of you, from the politicians. They need the support, and also they need the encouragement. Thank you so very much. I have been warned that we are going to have to close the session because unfortunately the bus that will transfer us to the next meeting is already nervous, apparently, the bus driver with us. And the interpreters also need to leave because of time constraints. But I wanted to say something before we go. In a complex world like the one that we live in currently, in a world that comprises so many different realities that go from hell to the purgatory, even though the church wanted to eliminate it. But we need to say, as Antonio Machado would have said, there is no way ahead. You tread the way as you step ahead. You trace your way, and when you turn your head back, you will see the road that you shall never step on again. So thank you very much for being here, and please make use of your imagination to find new ideas. And I would like to take the floor as a chairwoman of the World Day Against Transphobia and Homophobia. I hope that the next session tackles specifically education, because I think that education is essential, and we need to make our struggle in the educational field visible. Thank you very much. We have one last point that we would like to make. Luis Abolacia is going to tell us what we are about to do and how to do it. So you have the floor. Thank you very much, Chairwoman. Very briefly, so that we don't just leave thinking that this was all for nothing. I'm Luisa Bocilla. I work in the Victory Institute, and together with the summit, we had an objective for this session. We wanted to start dynamizing all the potential that lies in this room, and the potential contributed by so many people who could not attend. So we wanted to all join forces so that we can make progress in LGBT rights in the whole world. So our proposal from the Victory Institute is to start with a low-level work that will not require lots of commitment, because we know that processes cannot be forced, but rather they need to be facilitated. So the next steps that we propose is to first do a survey at an international level to determine what positions LGBTQI there are that we are not aware of. And to those people that hold positions that we already know of, we would like to ask them whether they want to be part of a group of experts that provide mutual assistance to make progress towards equality. Let me set an example. For instance, an openly regional minister in a small town in a country decides to put up for discussion at the city level a public policy to recognize the Day Against Homophobia as the 17th of May. How do you do that? Well, possibly they would like to ask another politician who has already gone through that journey so that they can find support. So that's our idea. So the Madrid Summit and the Victory Institute will send you a summary of the interventions that we heard today, a link to the survey too. In a month or a month and a half, we will obtain the results and we will monitor the process. And this won't be a two-speed Europe. We will all go at the same space. But if you want to speed up, then you need to ask us to put our foot on the gas. So thank you very much, Luisa Bolacía. Let's consider this initiative with the Victory Institute. And I would like to thank my co-chairs, Apsara Reddy, who is the official spokesperson for television events in India. And I would like to also thank Helge Stevens, who is an European MP, Jose Santoro, Ben Owen, and Luisa Bolacía, and to each and every single one of you who, with your valuable contributions, have added your part so that we can create a better world, a world that we dream of, and a world that we are managing to build in such little time. It seemed unthinkable. Now we're going to take a group photo.
Yes, I just wanted to explain what we're going to do. We're going to go to the Spanish Marine Square, and we will take a picture with the politicians, those who have participated at the debate, and then we will take another picture with everyone. Okay? Thank you.